Lots of people talk about chasing their dreams, but how many actually do it? Welcome to the Pursue Your Passion podcast with Tyler Kamerman. We're going to introduce you to people who are intentionally pursuing their passion every day. Through their stories of success and their struggles, you'll gain insight into how to better begin or continue your journey. Now here's Tyler with today's guest.
What's up, passion pursuers? This is Tyler Kamerman with you, hollering at you from a solo cast again this morning, mainly because I have something that was really on my heart that I feel like I need to talk to you about, and that is focus. But before we dig really deep into that, I wanted to give you just a little bit of an update about what's been going on with the Pathway Passion, the new Pathway Passion, the Chief Development Officer role with many hands. I know I talked about that a little bit on the last episode, but I just wanted to get you back up to speed on what's been going on lately. And I have been so busy. It's been great. I really feel that this position is allowing me to use the skills and talents that God has blessed me with, that I have been continuing to work on, that I have honed throughout the previous career opportunities that I've had. And it's just been a great culmination of my work life up until this point. Now, I will say it is absolutely stretching me as well. I've said it no less than 5 times. I'm flexing new muscles. And that sounds cheesy, but it's true. I'm doing new things, and that I use the analogy of stretching new muscles, of using new muscles, because there's some pain there, right? Like you have to work new muscles, in order to do new things. And, I'm leading the revamping of one strategy, taking part in the revamping of another, and creating a new direction for a completely new strategy. And what I've figured out is, not that I've just in the past at work just had my head down and been sprinting and not, taken the mile high view of anything, but to be a part of directing strategy is really something fairly new for me. And I've noticed that having those ongoing projects that, you just have to chip away at, that don't have, even some of them, necessarily an immediate end date, I've noticed that causes some anxiety for me. So I've had to work through that as well. Like, being okay with this one project hanging out and maybe only doing one thing on it today, or not touching it all today, but knowing that it's still due in the future, that's new. At least having several ongoing projects like that, maybe rather than just one. And I think that's coupled with the fact that I have that going on in outside activities, being the Cub Master for my kids' Cub Scout pack, like that's got some ongoing stuff there too. So it's been great. It's challenging, but it's awesome because I know that I'm working new muscles, I'm doing new things, and ultimately, anytime we're learning, right, we're improving. So that's been great. I know on the last episode, I talked a little bit about this, but I had the opportunity to be a part of a strategic retreat, and that was incredible for a number of different reasons. I got to see the heart for our mission that our board of directors have. Sometimes people just jump on a board to put it on their resume, or, maybe they're kind of passionate about what the cause is. So they're like, yeah, I'll give a little bit of my time to that. It was incredible to see the board members of Many Hands and just the passion that they have for what we're doing, and being able to transform that. Well, being able to use the skills that they have to help further that mission. I think that I think is probably one of the biggest things that a board can do, is like, okay, what am I good at? Like, what do I do in my day-to-day life? And how can I bring my passion for this organization and combine those two things? It was just great to see financial minds working and creative minds working, and it was awesome. And then obviously we got to see the need in Abaco. It is 100% different. Well, I shouldn't say 100%. It's very different than Haiti, but the need is so real. this island was decimated by Hurricane Dorian in 2019, and for the most part, for a lot of it at least, hasn't been rebuilt. And there's a lot of different reasons why that's happened, but it's just crazy to drive around and see, basically a brand new building next to two or three in a row that are still in just complete disarray. And a lot of that has to do with, one place had insurance and the other one didn't. One place had the money to rebuild and the other one didn't. And so as I continue to process my time in Haiti, there are haves and have nots, but it wasn't evident in the area that I am in. Everybody just didn't have, right? And in Abaco, it's very evident because there is a much larger separation between the haves and the have-nots. And so there's just this different dynamic, but again, the need is so real. And I want to reiterate for anybody that's jumped on board that has a history with many hands, we're continuing. We're continuing in Haiti. We're getting ready for a fourth campus there. We're not leaving there. Our heart is in Haiti. In fact, our heart for Haiti is what has led us to Abaco. 25% of the population is Haitian. And so this is the next step. We're at a big precipice for growth. And, that's part of the reason that Tim brought me on. We need to find new resources, new people, new volunteers, new donors, both donations coming into the store, but also financial donations. So partnering with individuals and businesses in that way. And, I'll put a plug right there. If this is something you want to find out more about for you individually, for your family, for your church, for your business, please reach out to me. I'd love to tell you more about the story, where we're headed, and just all the awesome things that we're doing. And I am excited also that my family is going to be going on an impact trip in February to assist with the projects that we're going to be working on to help the people in Abaco. So that's something that we've committed to, Jessica and the kids and I. We're all going. And so this is, I'm super excited about it. I'd never experienced a mission trip. I had opportunities to go with our youth group growing up, and I never took advantage of it. And so I'm really excited, to do something like this with my wife, but also to bring our kids into the mix, for my kids to see a part of the world that most people don't. And, just to see how that affects them, see how they start to view the world a little bit differently by being, being exposed to people that are really struggling. And, I think that that's a challenge that I would have to all parents out there is what can you do to safely, but expose your kids to things that they're not used to. One thing that Jess and I have talked about a lot and have never implemented on a regular basis is just doing more volunteering, on a regular basis. Get the kids out and get out and help, because that is huge. And it's something that I want to do more of, but I definitely want to do more of with my family as well. Now, because my days have been super busy, a lot busier than I have been in the past, I have to admit, I have let my attention dwindle on intentionally pursuing my passions that I've talked to you about so much. And I think that happens. But I had a moment where I was like, oh, I have to quickly find somebody for episode 32. And that's when it hit me. No, what you really need to do is stop and refocus. Sometimes we get to sprinting and we turn on autopilot, and I think that that's very normal. And I want you to hear that. Like, if you've lost focus on whatever you're doing, like, that's okay from time to time. Not even from time to time. We don't want it to happen that often. It's okay for that to happen. But what we need to do, and what I had to do recently, is go, hold on, like, this is your job. This new pathway passion is super important to you, and you have to put your full effort, your heart, your mind, everything into that. But at the same time, you've got this other thing. I mean, I've got lots of other things, but I have my podcast. I have my goal of becoming a public speaker. I have my goal of writing a book. I have my creative endeavors that are very important to me. And when we lose focus, when we get busy, we can lose focus, and that happens. But then we need to take that time to go, hey, okay, I realize this. So now what? And just to kind of recap, how I got, February of 2020, I had this, okay, I need to make my creative endeavors important. I need to make them a priority. And so I made that commitment to every day do something to move that needle, to take a step forward in that direction. And it wasn't always, hey, I'm going to have an audition today, because some of those things are out of your control, and depending on what your bandwidth is, that also was dependent. Sometimes it was, I'm going to do these 5 things today. And sometimes it's just, hey, I'm going to get up and go to the gym so that I'm in good shape when a role, makes itself available. Now, I had several iterations from that point on, but another big turning point for me was being a part of the West Des Moines Leadership Academy. I think I should actually charge them for a spot on here, as much as I mentioned them. But it was huge for me to then go, yes, this creative piece of me is super important, but maybe there's different ways that I can be utilizing that creativity in me, because the voiceover work doesn't happen every day. The on camera work doesn't happen every day. In fact, I'm probably on my largest dry spell from being on camera for the last 5 years. But there's other ways that I can do that. And that's when the idea for the podcast started. Well, really what it started with was Adam Carroll talking about wanting to be an entertainer when he was younger, and how that morphed into, hey, I'm going to do public speaking because that gives me the opportunity to teach and entertain all at the same time. And so my wheels started turning, and then at the graduation I said, hey, I'm going to start a podcast within the next 3 months. I'm going to book my first paid public speaking gig within a year, and I'm going to write my first book within 2 years. The Pursue Your Passion podcast has been going strong for over a year now, and the public speaking is starting to happen. I have not booked a paid public speaking gig, but the public speaking is starting to happen, and I'm putting the work in for the book. So I'm moving this forward, but like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, that focus had dwindled. And not because I made this conscious decision, like I'm going to stop doing these things. I got busy and I took my eye off of it. What I was doing, and the things that I had planned to do, I stopped doing them. And again, not all at once. It's kind of like the pieces just started falling off as my time shifted. So that's when I, like I said, just recently went, okay, hold on. No, I'm kind of on autopilot right now. I need to refocus. So I sat down and I talked about, okay, let's be honest. I talk to myself pretty frequently. I'm doing it right now underneath the stairs in my house. I'm talking to a microphone. I'm talking to all of you right now. But in this moment, I went, okay, what is important? And I went back to February of 2020. What do I want to be doing on a regular basis on that creative side of things to move things forward? Submitting to projects daily, using the services that show the acting opportunities that are available. I want to be doing that daily. Practicing scripts, voiceover. That was a challenge that my agent gave me, was, hey, you need to take the time to practice every day. Now I read to my kids at bedtime almost every night. So you can kind of, that is reading out loud. So that's important, but taking the time to actually look at a script and work on it, both for the voiceover side and on camera, is something that I want to be a part of my regular routine. And then also staying in contact with agents. That is super important. Now, that's not something I need to do daily, but it's definitely something that I want to do. So I'm staying in front of them. And then on the Pursue Your Passion side, setting a routine for scheduling guests and recording pods. Um, my producer editor Taylor can certainly attest to the fact that I've been a little spotty in that area, turning things in at the last minute, and a lot of times hardly giving her enough time so that I can get it on the air. Keeping a list of potential guests current, continuing to just brainstorm on a regular basis about who would be great to have on the show. Regular blogging. That's something that I had made a commitment to several months ago and have never implemented. Finishing my one sheet, my speaking promotion sheet, and then beginning to promote myself as a speaker. Organizing my notes. I'm taking lots of notes for the book, but now it's time to start organizing them and beginning to write a first draft. So I've looked at all that stuff, and I think you've probably figured out my personality pretty well. If you've been listening to the show or if you've known me for a while, now I'm getting excited. I got all this stuff I want to do. I got to do it. Yes, it's awesome. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then hold on. That's a whole lot of stuff that you really haven't been doing. And now all of a sudden you're just going to throw it all back on your already super full plate. Nope, that is not going to work. You're either just going to feel extremely overwhelmed, or in true Tyler Kamerman fashion, you're going to do it all for a week or two, and then you're going to drop it all. Or one thing's going to drop off, and the next thing's going to drop off, and the next thing's going to drop off. So I need to prioritize and set deadlines. I need to figure out what's the most important, and then set a deadline for when I'm going to get it done. But first, the first step for me, but I would highly recommend it for you, is time blocking. I got away from this and I need to re-implement it in my personal life, but I also need to work it into my work schedule as well. The big thing for time blocking, and Mitch, the coach that I worked with for quite a while, the huge part about time blocking, especially if you're doing a side gig, is you put that time on your calendar and you hold it sacred. So I think the biggest challenge for me when I was working through that process first with Mitch was, I want to commit 20 hours a week to pursue your passion. It's like, but you don't have 20 hours a week. And so the first piece for me with time blocking is going, okay, when do I realistically have time? And I will tell you, those time blocks are still on my calendar, and I stopped honoring them. And I think partially because I set one way too early in the morning that was very, very difficult for me to actually do on a regular basis. And so once you cheat yourself out of that one block, it's a lot easier to skip the other ones as well. I'm not going to spend an hour talking about time blocking. That could actually be a podcast on its own or a blog, but I would highly recommend that you do some research into time blocking and make that a part of your routine if you haven't already. For me, that's where I'm at now. Okay, when do I actually have the time to do the things that I want to do? Because I really need to do that first before I jump into doing all these things on a regular basis again, because understanding, do I have 2 hours a week? Do I have 12 hours a week? That's going to help me understand which ones of these I can actually do. Because again, it's about prioritizing them. What's number one? What's number two? All the way down. And then figuring out how much time each week I have to do them, because somewhere there's going to be a line that has to be drawn. And it doesn't mean that if working on the writing, I'm just picking something. If it doesn't mean that if this week working on writing the book doesn't make it above the line, and when I say above the line, it doesn't make the cut, so to speak, like I don't have enough time for that this week, then maybe next week I rotate something else out. But understanding how much time I have available is super important to me, because that's going to allow me to figure out which of these projects I can work on this week and which ones are going to have to wait until next week. And I believe that is super important for me to implement in my work life as well. Again, I mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the things that's really stretching me is these ongoing projects. Now I've got the tasks too. I've got calls that I need to make. I've got, emails that I need to return, all of that stuff. But where I really think that getting implementing the time blocking system into my daily work life is going to be helpful is very similar, like I just said. I block out the time. I make sure that I have time to meet with clients, donors, other, business, make sure I have time for meetings. That's probably, I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to say. I meet with so many different people. Some of them are donors, some of them are potential donors, some of them are potential partners, some of them are coworkers. So it's probably just easier to just, set meeting times. And then, and then I fill in. I know I need to make, I want to make this many calls to current donors this week. So, I fill in blocks of time doing that. But then I also set times to work on this strategy or to work on this writing that I need to do. And by setting those times aside, in order for time blocking to work, you have to hold it sacred. And a lot of people, if you read about time blocking, there's lots of different theory, or I don't know about theories, but there's lots of different people that talk about this and they all tweak it a little bit. But one thing that is consistent is that when we stay focused on something for a given period of time, we're so much more efficient. So most people that are into time blocking will say, shut your phone off or turn it on silent, close your email, so that when you're writing or you're making calls, obviously you can't shut your phone off if you're making calls, but you're focused on that. You're not bouncing back and forth. Because as much as we want to be like, oh, I'm great at multitasking, the fact of the matter is, if you can actually focus on one activity for a half hour, for an hour, and then give yourself a break before you go on to something else, you're going to be amazed at the level of your productivity, really. I mean, and I have done this time and time again, and it's easy to slip out of it, but taking that time to do chunks of a half hour or an hour and focus on one thing, you will blow your productivity out of the water. You're going to be amazed at what you can do. The challenge is, we've gotten so used to, I'm working on this thing and then coworker X emails me. So I jump over here and I start emailing, and then my phone rings. So I take that call while I go back to work on this thing. And we've kind of tricked ourselves into thinking like, hey, this is the best way for me to work. Like, it's good for me to be doing 2 or 3 or 4 things at once. And that's just not true. Like, if we can focus on one task, and depending on how rewired you have gotten to multitasking, you might want to start with 15-minute chunks, because committing an hour to one thing might just drive you completely crazy. But that would be the next challenge that I have for you, is to really explore time blocking, and also to explore this intentional focus on one activity. Because if you focus your full time and effort on it, you're probably going to be able to get it done in half the time that you've done in the past, because you're not going to be distracted by the other things that are going on. And I know I mentioned this already, but I want to say it again. It's okay to lose focus. It's okay to sometimes lose your way, right? We hope it's not often, but it's okay. The trick is to not get stuck in a pity party, right? Like, it's so easy to go, oh my gosh, I screwed up. I did this wrong. How am I ever going to get this right? Like, don't get stuck there. Get back up and get back to work, right? In the words of Poppy from Trolls, because if you knock me over, I will get back up again. Yeah, you like that? Or the immortal Chumbawamba, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. Come on, sing it with me. No, nobody. So now I've rapped and sort of sang with you on this podcast. And thank you. You're welcome. I sincerely hope you have tub thumping in your head for the rest of the day. That'll be fun for you, and I will laugh. But in all seriousness, it's okay. I think too many times something goes wrong, whether it's at work or at home, and we just get derailed. So give yourself some grace here. If you're like me and you've lost focus, um, give yourself some grace. Like, hey, I screwed up. I messed up, but now I know what I need to do to get back on it. And this can happen at any point in the journey. I mean, for some people, it might be, I'm just trying to figure out what direction I'm going, and I lose focus. Or I'm at the end of the journey and I'm almost there and I lose focus, and now I've got to redirect. It can really happen at any point in your process. And so we need to be prepared for that. We need to be prepared for life's distractions to come in. For me, it was a new job that I am 100% in love with. I love what I'm doing. I love the organization that I work for, but it's pulled so much of my time and effort that I lost focus of what I'm doing. So now I need to reinvent what the pursue your passion journey looks like. And when I say reinvent, that makes it sound like I'm, starting from scratch. I just need to go back to the basics and say, okay, what am I going to focus on? What are my key things that I'm going to make time for? And that's another thing that I just want to comment on. I got out of the habit. I used to say a lot, I don't have time for that. And I've started admitting what it really is. I can't make that a priority right now. We all have time to do whatever. Well, okay. We all have the time to do things, right? To say, I don't have time to do that, most of the time really isn't true. I can't make that a priority right now. For me, I got to the point a few years ago where and this sounds really shallow, but I'm going to say it anyway. I got to the point where I was like, if someone were to approach me with something, does this make me money? Okay. If it doesn't make me money, is it important enough to me to take time away from my family? And that is super simple and basic, but it worked for me. Okay. Now, just because it made me money doesn't mean I was always going to do it. And so I shouldn't say it makes me sound super shallow, because it's like, oh, that makes me money. Yeah, I'm going to go do it. No, it's like, but that was like one of the things that I would look at first. Like, okay, does this make me money? Because, and I would do it that way because I think for me, if it was my job, then it was much more acceptable to choose it over my family. Again, full transparency. But if it was another board commitment or another volunteer or whatever that activity is, another, getting invited to go play golf. That's funny. I suck at golf. Anything, whatever the activity was, is it important enough to me to take time away from my family? And that was really how I started balancing things. That's why I'm, recording a podcast at 5:15 in the morning, because my family's still sleeping. Not saying this isn't important enough for me to take time away from my family. That's more because it's actually quiet in my house and I can record. But that for me was a way to start, again, prioritizing life in general, but prioritizing new commitments that might come at me. So throwing a lot at you today, but kind of pouring my heart out, really. I hit a spot where, yeah, I lost focus, and I lost focus on one part of my life. I didn't lose focus on everything. Like Jessica and I are staying, committed to communicating with each other. That's easy to get away from. Have we, has that gotten a little less? Yeah, because she's super busy right now too. But that's another one of those places where it's important to stay committed, right? I mean, you have to stay committed to communication with your significant other. You have to stay committed to communication with your children if you have kids. So this can be applicable in any aspect of your life where you might lose focus. How can you refocus? How can you not get stuck where you're at? I would challenge you. I would love to know where you're at on your journey. Like, are you listening to this and going, "Oh man, yeah, I've lost focus on that as well"? Or are you going, "Wow, I'm glad I am not there. I've never experienced that, and I hope I never do"? Or are you going, "Yeah, I went through that last year, and this is what I did"? Because those are all things that I would love to hear from you on. Whether it's on the website or, shoot me an email, like what has been helpful for you when you've lost focus? And then where are you at on your journey? I know some of you have been listening since the start of this. Some of you just jumped on board a few episodes ago. But as you're pursuing your passion, where are you at? Are you just getting started? Are you, are you 3 years in? Are you trying to figure out how to monetize a hobby? Are you getting ready to sell your business? Like, where are you at in this process? I love hearing from listeners. I love hearing from people that are at different phases of their journey. It's super exciting for me. It's inspiring for me, and I would just love the opportunity to connect with you personally. On that note, I want to thank you for coming along on this journey with me. I want to thank you for telling your friends about the show. I want to thank you for suggesting new guests for me. We've got some great ones that are going to be coming up soon. And yeah, just thank you for coming on this journey with me. Please continue to tell friends and family, to tell coworkers, to tune in, because it's my hope that everyone can find that thing that they're passionate about. I know I've said it a bunch of times, but it doesn't mean a career change. It just means finding that thing that's going to inspire you to get out of bed with a smile on your face instead of rolling out of bed and being discouraged about having to go to work. Because it's not always about changing jobs. A lot of times it's just about finding that fire, finding that spark that gets you motivated to get out and go kick butt at life. So thank you again for being on this journey. I will talk to you all soon. Keep pursuing those passions.
If you have questions or would like to contact us, please check out the show details for contact information. Thanks for listening to the Pursue Your Passion podcast.